The blueprint, study my movement, more than the 2 cents. Was losing, now I'm oozing with success. Now I got the tools to beat the stress. I lose cause I'm a step ahead of you.
Welcome to 3 Count Commentaries. Let's get into NXT from May 31st, 2022. A pretty good episode of NXT. I gotta say, nice go home show for in your house. We're gonna start off with a little news and notes. And the first note is Simone Johnson. It was announced over the weekend that Simone Johnson had picked her WWE name, and it is going to be Ava Raine. A-V-A-R-A-I-N-E. I'm pretty sure that last name is going to be changed, considering it's far too close to Roman Reigns. In the event, Ava Raine is the name she picked for herself in NXT, and of course this threw people for a loop, because like Braun Breaker and like Santino's daughter, whose name I already forgot in NXT, people were like, you should just bill the Children of Legends as the Children of Legends. A very infamous Twitter account, Louis Danghor, who is a lead WWE journalist at Give Me Sports, formerly of Wrestle Talk TV, tweeted out, not portraying Ariana Grace as Santino Marella's daughter is one thing. Giving Simone Johnson, the daughter of The Rock, a new name is completely nonsensical. We'll hold judgment until she debuts, but if WWE doesn't acknowledge her dad is The Rock, that's ridiculous. Of course, this led to a lot of people kind of just agreeing with him. And then, of course, he says, genuinely wasn't intended to be a knock on Simone. By the way, and I apologize if it was taken in a different way. It's more about WWE changing the names of second-generation wrestlers. But as someone who isn't a wrestler, perhaps I don't get it. Perhaps I don't... Oh, well, okay. And people told him in the comment section that it's about building her own identity. Here's what she had to say about it. She says, I probably sound like a broken record, and hopefully this is the last I'll mention this, but I don't understand why people being portrayed as separate individuals from their family name is such a heated topic. A name doesn't discredit any prior accomplishments from any family, which, you know, it should be common sense to most people. And then she says, I could build my entire career around my father and people would still bash me anyway, which is absolutely true. So just like Braun Breaker and Ariana Grace, we have a new wrestler. WWE has chosen to sort of hide the name from people who don't know and let her develop her own personality, her own persona. And it is smart business. Again, sometimes the name of your dad is way too much responsibility. Sometimes it's hard to live up to that. She's already coming out of the box with injuries. She's like 19 or 20 or something like that. She's already had like a knee surgery or something like that. He's already behind the 8 ball. She's the daughter of The Rock. That's going to be very difficult. And it's pretty ballsy of her to even try to do this, knowing who her dad is, because she's going to be continuously compared to him, and any mistake or misstep is going to be seen as being or hell, WWE, they taking a lot of risk bringing her in too, because, you know, terrible booking or a situation where she doesn't look too good. You're in a situation where you got The Rock's daughter, you know, so this can be a combustible situation. But The Rock is a businessman, and hopefully this is a business thing and not just kind of a favor where she's going to be on the roster forever, even if she doesn't do anything. So hopefully she actually does wrestle. I know some people, and it was a conspiracy theory when she first signed, especially since she was signed for so long before actually making any type of appearance, is that she kind of had the Stephanie McMahon job, where she works there, but nobody really quite sure what she does. She's going to be a wrestler, but we're just going to say she's training, and then she's been training for a year and a half or something like that. And maybe she wrestles, maybe she doesn't, and basically just hide her in a closet, and she just stays there as a favor to The Rock. But it doesn't seem like that's what she wants. You know, it seems like she actually wants to do something. And the first step is to separate herself from her father as much as she can, just by changing her name. And it's going to be fun. You know, people were giving Dominic Mysterio hell for not going through NXT. Remember, that's a pretty bright reminder for people, especially through 2020. I watched people absolutely lose their giblets, go half in the bag. Dominic doesn't deserve to be there. He's only there because of who his dad is. You know, because he's Dominic Mysterio. Dominic was introduced to WWE when he was, what, 8? So you can't really hide who he is. But that's how they reacted to him when he was there. Because especially people were saying, like, he shouldn't be getting a push. It should be Ricochet. It should be Mustafa Ali or some other generic luchador type of guy, Grand Metalik or something. And because it was Dominic that was getting pushed, wrestling Seth Rollins and everything, it was a problem. People didn't like it. They hated it. And they complained vociferously all over the Twitter machine that he was getting unfair treatment. And then Braun Breaker came out, and they was not acknowledging that he was Rick Steiner's son, and it was, well, that's stupid. That's dumb. Why are you not doing that? It's like, okay, when they do it, that's the only reason they get a push. Charlotte, the only reason she even get a push is because of who her daddy is. You know, and you just kind of like, man, they just can't win for losing. So it's very ballsy for Simone to even get involved with this shit, knowing the kind of basement dwelling weirdos that inhabit the wrestling space that actually don't want you to succeed for any reason. It seems like they're looking for any way to bring you down or to take you down. See Nikita Lyons, by the way. And I decided we're going to do something completely different because I want to expand that subject to a different level. So we'll talk about Nikita Lyons and which she apparently upset a lot of people again. We're going to talk about that. We'll do it some other time, though. Alright, so Simone Johnson, aka Ava Raine. I like it. I like when people try to be themselves. I don't see a problem with it. It's a good shield for the people who don't know that she's The Rock's daughter. Yeah, some people will Google her, some people won't. I know it's a surprise to many, but there's a lot of people I see on TV that I don't Google. You know, so maybe she'll debut on NXT and nobody will actually Google her and care about what the hell she's doing. Alright, so let's get into NXT proper. Roderick Strong and Diamond Mine dominated this show. They was all over the place. There was like 4 Diamond Mine segments, maybe 5. We start the show with Roderick Strong walking to the ring for his match against Pretty Deadly. He tells the Creed brothers they have the night off, and Ivy Nile and the Creeds are pretty upset because Diamond Mine don't take nights off. But Roderick Strong says that he wants them to watch him as he deals with Pretty Deadly. Roderick Strong and Damon Kemp go out there to have a match, non-title match with Pretty Deadly. A pretty fun match. Pretty Deadly tried to cheat. The Creed brothers came out there to help. Ended up with one of the Creed brothers getting bashed in the head with a belt. It distracted Roderick Strong. Roderick Strong gets hit with Pretty Deadly's finish and pinned. He was not happy about that. He was not happy about that at all. So he got into the face of the Creed brothers later on and told them that they need to learn how to follow instructions. Ivy Nile tried to explain the situation, that he was going to get hit with a belt, and Roderick Strong was like, so what? I would have won by disqualification, but at least I would have won. So he basically demands compliance from these dudes and says he knows what's best from Diamond Mine because he is the leader of Diamond Mine. And if the Creed brothers do not win at In Your House, they are out of Diamond Mine. And that was a nice little segment. The Diamond Mine is not done though. Ivy Nile is in the back doing push-ups when Kiana James shows up and gets and asks her some questions. Basically said that she's going to continue talking to the Creed brothers after they get kicked out of Diamond Mine. And Ivy Nile, who still has the sweetest voice on NXT. I'm talking like she looks like she would sound like RuPaul when she talks. But she just sounds like the sweetest little girl. I'm talking, pink teddy bears and fluffy pillows. She just has the sweetest voice of all time. And she explains that, the Creed brothers are going to win. And Kiana James says, well, no, according to my calculations, the Creed brothers only have a 12% chance of victory. This, of course, gets her hemmed up by Ivy Nile, who says, what's the chances of me kicking your ass? So they decided to have the match, Ivy Nile versus Kiana James. It's the 6th match on the card. They gave Kiana James a lot of offense. She actually countered Ivy Nile's original finisher, which is the neck crank dragon sleeper. Throughout the match, Kiana James is, making fun of Ivy Nile, saying that it's brains over bronze always. But either way, Ivy Nile ends up winning. Pretty Deadly comes out there to congratulate Ivy Nile on her victory. And then said, what is she going to do when the Creed brothers are going to get kicked out of Diamond Mine? And they're going to be the reason why. they get kicked out of Diamond Mine. This leads the Creeds to come out to attack Pretty Deadly. They bumped them around, threw them all over the floor, and that was pretty much the end. So we had a Diamond Mine story that increased throughout the night. I thought it was very well done. Roderick Strong is not a good promo. He's not a strong promo, but I think he was serviceable in this at this point. You know, he was not terrible. He was not as cringe as he usually is. He doesn't sound like the disciplinarian that you want him to sound like, but he still, you know, got his point across. And the Creed brothers now have double the reason to win it in your house. But now the question is, do we even really want them in Diamond Mine? You know, like this dissolution of Diamond Mine storyline that they've been doing the past couple of weeks. I'm thinking this is why they didn't, you know, let Roderick Strong go early. They're probably going to finish this storyline and then let him go. Because this feels like, obviously, we're going to have a split. And it's going to be Damon Kemp and Roderick Strong on one side. And then the Creed brothers on the other side with Ivy Nile being stuck in the middle. So far, Ivy Nile has been essentially besties with the Creed brothers. And that she seems to be going towards being who they are. And she has this sort of Diamond Mine forever type of mentality. Like the group should survive and should always, you know, be able to overcome. So I like this. I like this, you know, this situation here, because it's even more heat on an already tense situation with Pretty Deadly and the Creed brothers. And now I'm not sure I want the Creed brothers to even win. You know, I'm kind of like, all right, we can break up the Diamond Mine. That's an interesting storyline. Of course, what do you do with the Creed brothers once you broke them up? But then the question, of course, then becomes, what do you do if they win? They're stuck with Roderick Strong, who is a complete dick on head. You know, so that's an interesting thing. Also, Ivy Nile, she went and did some tapings for NXT UK. She won a couple of matches over there. She will be wrestling Meiko Satomura for the NXT UK Women's Championship. I don't know when this occurred, because she's been back for a while now, and the match between her and Meiko Satomura has not aired yet. But I don't know. She doesn't have the belt, so I'm guessing she didn't win it, unless she did win it, and we're just going to talk about her winning it after she won it. I don't know what's going to happen. But I can almost guarantee you Meiko Satomura is not about to lose the belt to Ivy Nile. But it still should be fun. You know, it's going to be a nice little lesson for Ivy Nile. And it actually taught that Ivy Nile is a babyface, because Meiko Satomura has told people, if you want to fight, just come up to me. And Ivy Nile marched through the women's locker room and very respectfully asked for a title match after winning only like 1 or 2 matches in NXT UK. And it was graciously accepted. So, you know, they're doing a lot with Ivy Nile. And they're letting her talk a little bit more. I think she definitely needs a manager. You know, so maybe we need to turn one of these girls into a manager or something. Maybe one of these guys. And she shouldn't talk. Like I said, she just has such a sweet voice. And she just sounds like the sweetest girl in the world. It's probably not a good idea, you know, because it clashes so much with her Man of Steel look that she's just like the most girly girl voice ever. You know, it's so odd. All right, let's move on to something else. Okay, so Solo Sikoa tells Cameron Grimes that he has his back tonight because he knows that Trick and Mello is up to something. Duke Hudson slid into the scene and says that, you know, he beat Brian Breaker, so he's next for the NXT Championship. And Solo Sikoa says, look, man, that was by disqualification, and so it doesn't really count. And Duke says, well, I wouldn't expect a guy like you to understand. You know, you know, like you're not on my level. And then Solo Sikoa says, well, I guess if, you know, to get on your level, I got to beat a guy like you. And Duke Hudson said, well, yeah, I guess you do. This led to their match later in the show, where Solo Sikoa wrestled Duke Hudson. And it was a pretty fun match. You know, I thought it was fun. A springboard German suplex from Duke Hudson. It actually looked pretty interesting. Duke Hudson was into some interesting business about a week ago. I know that a lot of people didn't want to talk about this because they didn't want to out him. But since it's public information, if you saw the documents, he was in a domestic dispute with Jake Atlas, and Jake Atlas was arrested for domestic violence. It's a pretty ugly situation, you know. Glad to see that they didn't allow that to derail what they were doing with Duke Hudson. So it is what it is. And, you know, I'm just going to be like, look, I know a lot of people are kind of, we don't want to out him. It's like, you can't have it both ways. You can't say that being gay is not a big deal and it's not a problem, but it's also something that we should be keeping secret. It should not be a secret that a gay man is gay. Who cares that he's gay? You know, you walking around with it in a briefcase only means that it's weird. You know, we need to stop this coming out shit. Like, okay, he's gay. I didn't need to know that he was gay. I didn't ask anybody. It came out through the course of him getting assaulted, apparently, by his drunken boyfriend. It is what it is. It ain't nothing personal. It ain't, you know, it's not going to be... Like, the idea of keeping it secret means that there's going to be repercussions. That's what the whole point of the closet was about. It was about, hey, we're going to keep these guys in the closet because if people found out you were gay, you were going to get mistreated. That doesn't really happen that much anymore. Now, I know there was a story out there about a trans dude who got absolutely beat to death because he pulled a little switcheroo on a guy on Tinder. That's a little bit of a different situation than what I'm talking about here. We're talking about, at this point, the police documents. You don't really... If you've seen them, then you know it was him. It's not like you can't unsee it. And just because you saw it doesn't mean you shouldn't talk about it. So, it is what it is. It's nothing personal. It hasn't changed my opinion of Duke Hudson. I always thought that he had some talent. That damn casino gimmick they had him doing was the shits. It was awful. But, you know, he obviously is a big guy, got some charisma, he can talk. So, I thought he was cool and evolve, you know, so it is what it is. But glad to see that he wasn't hurt too bad, and apparently it wasn't that big of a deal anyway, and that maybe even Jake Atlas shouldn't even got arrested for it. But he did, so, you know, glad to see Duke Hudson is alright. Alright, moving on. Grayson Waller is backstage making too much noise. He's bouncing around, asking if Roxanne Perez is a fan or a fighter, and she doesn't stand a chance against Tiffany Stratton. Then he kept talking about the horse girl and calling and calling Jensen and Briggs bogans, which apparently means what is it, bumpkin American something. It was hilarious. And then he says that after Tiffany Stratton beats her, they can go, her and all her mates can go back to the farm. Briggs was, of course, eavesdropping and then challenged Grayson Waller to a match. You know, it's crazy how many times, you know, guys are just eavesdropping on other people's conversations. So Grayson Waller versus Josh Briggs was match 5 on the show. Josh Briggs didn't come out alone. He came out with Jensen and Fallon Henley. Grayson Waller says 301 is unfair, and to take Horseface and Fallon Henley and send them back, which Josh Briggs did because he's a man of honor. Didn't do him any good though. At some point in this match, Grayson Waller rode Josh Briggs like a rodeo. Just got sat on his back and was like, woohoo! And I was like, Lord have mercy. Like, I remember how cringe this was when what was that midget's name in the Dark Order? Not that small guy, the other small one. The smallest of the small one, what's his name? Johnny Hungy. He jumped on Hangman Page's back and did the same thing. And I thought like that was super cringe for a guy that you were trying to make world champion. But since Briggs is kind of like a low card tag team guy, it's, you know, it's embarrassing, but it also extends from Grayson Waller's mockery of them being country bumpkins. So, but I generally speaking, not a big fan of you riding guys. Not a big fan of that. Not a big fan of that. So, Von Wagner distracted Josh Briggs, leading to Grayson Waller doing his run in the ring, tumbling stunner, which I wish he could get rid of that thing. And he ends up winning the match. After the match, Von Wagner comes in to pick the bones of Josh Briggs and beat him up. This led to Jensen coming out there and making the save. I am a big fan of Grayson Waller. they have cooled him off substantially over the last several months, but it doesn't take much for him to get back into the swing of things. And I'm really enjoying the kind of stuff that he does when he's allowed to cut loose and just basically be, the prick that he really is. We got the sit down next. Tony D and Santos Escobar, they was on a yacht, which was awesome. Fantastic visual. They're in the middle of nowhere, riding around on a yacht, even though it looked more like a speedboat, but whatever. I don't know a difference between a yacht and a speedboat. What am I? I'm from the hood. Anyway, Tony says that Santos Escobar is an emperor of his own empire. He doesn't like him. He doesn't trust him. Santos Escobar says that Tony D, a kid from the streets, stabs everyone in the front and then steps on their back. Said that Tony D'Angelo is a cobra, and but he's a python. He's going to squeeze the life out of Tony D. Tony D'Angelo makes the challenge. Elektra Lopez asks, the pretty obvious question: "We already beat you. What's in it for us?" So this means that Tony D has to up the stakes. So then he says, "All right, how about a 6-man tag?" And then he called Santos Escobar a prick and said that the loser has to join the winner's faction. And he's going to turn Legado del Fantasma into foot soldiers. And I said, this is great. This is excellent. They need to take it to the next level and make it no disqualification. Like I said, it should be like a street fight with the same stakes. Like, if you turn it into a hardcore stipulation and let these guys fight it out and beat the shit out of each other, then there could be some mutual respect at the end. Like, we're setting it up right now where somebody could do something like pull the tights or put their foot on the ropes and steal the match. Like, that's kind of how we're setting it up right now. But the great thing about this is I'm not sure who will win. I'm sitting here trying to picture Tony D'Angelo in Santos Escobar's group. Or picturing Tony D'Angelo, or picturing Santos Escobar in Tony D'Angelo's group. Like, they don't really fit. So it seems like it's a variation of the whole you lose, you become my butler situation. That's kind of how it feels. So this ought to be fun though. So it ought to be fun. Elektra Lopez, she had a match on this show. She lost to Cora Jade via top rope senton. Cora Jade's strikes look absolutely awful. They look awful. They need to tell her to grapple more and do more springboard stuff and do more high flying, because her forearm shivers always look like shit anyway, but her forearm shivers especially look like absolute dog scheisse. She needs to cut it out. The match is a little bit sloppy too, but Elektra Lopez is her fine ass. That girl fine. Good lord. Alright, Wes Lee's back. He's been waiting on a match with Zion Quinn for a while, and Zion Quinn finally been medically cleared. He's not going to miss this opportunity. And he says that as long as he has air in his body, he will fight. Sanga appears with his Wario mustache. Says that you are not giant, but you have giant heart. Fight him like you fight me. So Wesley and Zion Quinn get involved in the third match. Dominant performance from Zion Quinn. I mean, he just absolutely launched Wesley around, physically abused him. And Wesley ends up winning with a counter roll-up, which, shocked the hell out of me. Because I was like, NXT is still making some of the same mistakes that they was making before in terms of taking guys who look like they should be top guys in WWE, like a Zion Quinn, and having them lose to Wesley. I know this is all part of Zion Quinn paying his dues, though, because once Vince sees him, if he could put both feet in front of himself, Zion Quinn's going to be fine on the main roster. So, Wesley would be, he's dead meat on the main roster as far as I know. I'm just looking at the history of guys his size. It's not very good. He may get a chance, but it won't be much of a chance. But I think Zion Quinn is a guy they can see, being one of the next guys. He's big, he's kind of smooth. Maybe he can work a little bit on his promo and character stuff, but I could see him definitely making it to the main roster and being a badass that Vince falls in love with, and him being one of the guys. So Zion Quinn losing doesn't hurt his stock in the long run, but it does kind of make him look like a dumbass in the short term. All right, we got a Roxanne Perez vignette. They showed pictures of her family from when she was 13 and talking about wanting to be a wrestler, and how she been preparing to win something like the breakout tournament since she was in childhood. And she rode a bus 10 hours to train with Booker T, and who didn't care that she was the smallest or the youngest, but pushed her to do her best. And that while her friends were going to the prom and hanging out at the mall, she was doing this, and the only one that ever understood her was Cora Jade. Then she says that Tiffany Stratton is twice her size and much stronger, but doesn't have her passion. And I was like, oh God, what a stereotypical indie thing. This brought us to Tiffany Stratton later in the episode, saying that last week she fixed a big mistake, which means she should have been in the tournament from the first place. Said that she saved herself, as she always do, got into the tournament and won. Now she's going to win it. And then she talked about all the different competitions that she's won, like bodybuilding. Then she says, when you expect greatness, success follows you around like a personal assistant. Then later she laughed at Roxanne's life and said that Roxanne's life is as interesting as a cardboard box, and she's totally over people liking her. And then she says that, did you hear what she said about riding on a bus for 10 hours? Like, this thing is called an airplane. It's existed for like 100 years. Like, she's really doing a good job of this with this character, and the character is coming to life as she becomes better in the ring. I definitely think Tiffany Stratton should win the breakout tournament finals, which is why I'm surprised it's not at In Your House. Like, why not do the breakout tournament finals at In Your House? Whatever. It's going to be next week. Okay, whatever. That being said, I'm pretty sure Roxanne is going to win. Even though, like I said, Tiffany Stratton should win. I think Roxanne winning and then winning the title is the better story, because Mandy Rose has to get the hell out of NXT at some point. And I think Toxic Attraction is definitely needed on the main roster, because they got them tag team titles sitting around vacant doing nothing. Alright. Next is Joe Gacy. Joe Gacy cuts a promo basically telling Brian's life story. He was killing me softly with this. He was talking about how Brian was raised in a house of fury and anger, watching his dad blaze a career in violence. Then that left Brian and his brothers to fight. And instead of stopping the fight, his father nourished it, because he fought his brother. And brothers fighting is what the Steiners do. And he says that he took his rage to the gridiron and realized that his aggression needed a better home. Like father, like son, he came over to sports entertainment, or pro wrestling. Then he says, how did I know all of these intimate details? I studied them from your father. And he talked about how he had, Rex Steiner all chained up. And then he says that it's not Brian's fault that he's a rage machine. That he's to be the man that he truly is. And that it's more important to get even than it is to win. He says one way or another, he's getting that NXT championship. And I was like, okay. Look, I'm sitting on the fence on this one. It wasn't terrible, but it felt like him telling Braun's story was weird. It was creepy. I would have liked for him to, to make it creepier. He should have had like pictures. Like he had the pictures, and when he put the picture backstage in the locker so Braun could find it, it would have been nice if he'd had like pictures of, Braun and his brothers smiling, and then all that kind of stuff, and he kind of flings it. Then there's, pictures of Braun in high school and college playing football and all that kind of stuff, to make it seem like he's been stalking him. Like that would be very nice. So Braun is, said that he's not losing to Gacy, and he's kind of tired of this guy. Then we got crazy special effects, which always makes these things worse. Always makes it worse. There's lights flickering and Gacy laughing in the locker room, not in the arena, in the locker room. So now we got flickering lights and Gacy's Skeletor laugh in the locker room. And Braun Breaker gets really mad. He's going to smash the TV. And then he reconsiders it. The TV is an innocent bystander who did nothing wrong. So he puts the TV back down and said, maybe Gacy is right. But him being angry is not a weakness, it's a strength. and he's going to tear Joe Gacy apart at In Your House. And this was the closing angle for these guys. There was no subsequent angle after this. This has been probably one of the weakest NXT title storylines maybe in the history of NXT championships. This has been so soft. This is not good. I'll be glad when it's over. There's zero chance of Gacy winning. Zero chance of Gacy winning. This match should go on first. Alright? This match should just go on first, and Gacy lose in a hard-fought match, and we just call it a day. Alright? Because nobody believes Joe Gacy will win this match. Legado del Fantasma versus Tony D'Angelo's crew. Much more interesting match, much more intriguing, a lot more at stake. The Tag Team Championship, a lot more at stake. We should just put this match on first. Just put it on first. Alright? Don't make people wait all night for this. Unless you're going to switch the title or reveal who the Druids are, and that's going to be the big reveal. It's going to be like, oh, that's going to make all of this worth it. Otherwise, I just don't see the point in this being the main event. Alright, we got another cringe segment here. The Toxic Attraction Championship Summit. As Toxic Attraction sits there with Katana Chance, Kaden Carter, and Wendy Chu. So, Katana Chance and Kaden Carter dominate this segment. And they're not that bad. They have some pretty sharp words for Toxic Attraction, that they're sick of them, tired of seeing them. Just tired of them dominating the division and not defending the titles and all that kind of stuff. Gigi is still not very good as far as promos are concerned. And she says that she loves the delusional confidence that they have. That there's a long list of women have come and gone from NXT because they weren't talented enough to face them or stand up to them. And then JC Jane says, we understand the butterflies that are maybe in your stomach. This is your first premium live event, and it took you long enough, which I thought was funny. Then she says that while you guys were making cringe TikTok dance videos and playing Dance Dance Revolution, we've been in the ring being dominant. Then of course she made some short jokes because that's what they do. Kaden Carter tried to cut into them, and they started to argue. Wendy Chu just kept telling them to sign the contract. Mandy Rose cut a promo saying that she's under the most pressure of anybody at NXT In Your House, and that she is under the pressure of making sure this child isn't the NXT champion. And they said if she won the title back at Halloween Havoc, everybody said that her run was going to be short, and now here it is 200 days later, and she wants respect on her name. Wendy Chu had nothing to add. She just kept telling them to sign the contract, and that was frustrating Mandy. And then the crowd started chanting sign the contract over her promo. It was all very, very interesting. Of course, this ends in a brawl, because how else are these things going to end? I mean, literally, how else is this thing going to end? And it ends with Mandy Rose being put through a table by Wendy Chu, and the sleepy elbow, I guess you could call it that. Very interesting stuff there. Very interesting stuff. I'm almost certain Mandy Rose is going to win this match. We'll do predictions a little bit later. I forgot. I forgot. So we're going to have to do predictions. I also want to do another subject. Maybe we'll do that subject, then we'll do predictions. Alright, so we did all of this stuff. We got another Giovanni Vici vignette where he says style, class, and athleticism are coming to NXT. And I'm like, okay. So he's talking about how he skis and he drives expensive cars. He's a man of taste. He eats asparagus. Like, if you eat asparagus, you're just a prick. I'm sorry. How could you eat that shit? Alright, match 7, the main event. Cameron Grimes versus Nathan Frazer. This is probably the first full wrestling match I've watched since I was held captive on Sunday night via AEW Double or Nothing. This is probably the first full match I watched from bell to bell without looking at my phone in 2 days. So, and it was worth it. This was very good. Nathan Frazer is very good. He needs a persona, a personality, but the boy is very good. Cameron Grimes has got everything we need. I like the standoff at the beginning where they're doing exchange and holds, and it didn't seem too contrived. You know, and both guys are very athletic. Both guys are also very pasty. But very, very good match. The closing segment comes from a top rope German suplex by Cameron Grimes. Nathan Frazer lands on his stomach. This leads to the cave-in and the 1-2-3. After the match, Trick and Mello jumped Cameron Grimes, and he ended up fighting them off. Alright. Great main event. Absolutely great match. We definitely need something more from Nathan Frazer. Alright, so now that we have the NXT In Your House card, let's go through this thing. Alright? We're going to do predictions. I forgot, to be quite honest, as I was talking about it. I was like, when am I going to do the predictions? I was like, well, fuck, I got to do predictions here. So, let's do it. NXT Women's Championship, Mandy Rose versus Wendy Choo. I definitely think Mandy Rose needs to win. Wendy Choo is not the kind of character you want as a champion. She has entertainment value, but she's not championship material. You know, you don't put the belt on R-Truth while he's doing Little Jimmy. You may be entertained by that, but that doesn't make a world champion. That's why you don't put the belt on Zack Ryder, despite the fact that everybody wanted that. That's not what you do. You don't put the title on the goofball. You don't put the belt on Santino Marella. You may tease that you will do that, but ultimately it's a bad idea to do so. So Wendy Choo being champion, forget it. Tony D'Angelo, Channing stacks Lorenzo and Troy 2 times Donovan versus Legado del Fantasma, Santos Escobar, Joaquin Wilde, and Cruz del Toro. The loser must join the winning team. I think it would be a great push for Tony D to be the Don of NXT and to be the boss of all bosses in NXT. It would just fit his character for him to have all of these guys under him. I know I've been saying for like a year and some change that Legado del Fantasma needs to get the fuck out of NXT, but it's never been more prevalent than it is now. They gotta get out of NXT. Especially if the plan is for them to lose to Tony D'Angelo and join his faction. They really gotta get the fuck out of NXT. Because that would be a complete destruction of Santos Escobar's character. It will embarrass Tony D'Angelo, but it wouldn't wreck his character as badly as it would wreck Santos Escobar. Like, there's still something about Tony D'Angelo being a guy from the streets where, you know, he should be used to being a soldier by now. He's still a young guy, you know. So, but Santos Escobar is older, more seasoned, apparently fabulously wealthy on his own, and he owns a yacht. You know, like, I don't know. As far as who wins, it's such a tough toss-up. This is why I love this match, because I can see it going either way. I'm going to go with my favorites. I'm going to go with Legado del Fantasma to win. And Tony D'Angelo probably won't be a member of their team for much longer. And maybe they'll car bomb each other or something like that in order to get out of this. Alright, the NXT Women's Tag Team titles, Toxic Attraction, Gigi Dolan and JC Jane versus Kaden Carter and Katana Chance. I could see Kaden Carter and Katana Chance winning the titles here. Like they said in the sit down, they're the only team that defeated Toxic Attraction, which was, you know, interesting storyline element. But I think as long as Mandy is the champion, Toxic Attraction would be okay. And you could, you know, I think you can move them up as just the two of them until Mandy drops the belt, and then, you know, she can join the team later. So I'm going to go ahead and go with Kaden Carter and Katana Chance as the tag team champions. I think we're going to have new tag team champions. Even though we probably could use Kaden Carter and Katana Chance on the main roster. Only issue is they're very, very small. Very small. Maybe you move both teams up. Who knows? But I'm still going to go with Kaden Carter and Katana Chance as the NXT champion. NXT Championship, Brian Breaker versus Joe Gacy. If Breaker gets disqualified, he'll lose the NXT title. I already said it. 0% chance that Joe Gacy wins. I think we will find out who the Druids are in this segment. And it ought to be shocking. If not, it'll be a great disappointment. This is where we need to find out what the Druids are. I know we really don't care, but if we're going to go with the storyline that Braun's going to lose the title by disqualification, maybe we ought to have something dangling over his head that would cause that disqualification. And learning who those druids are would be the only way I could see them taking the belt off of him. NXT Tag Team Championships, Pretty Deadly, Elton Prince and Kit Wilson versus the Creed brothers, Julius and Brutus Creed. I'm going to go with Pretty Deadly. I know WWE probably is itching to have Pretty Deadly on the main roster, mainly for the Max Dupree storyline, which they would fit into perfectly. Like, I can see Vince looking at these guys saying that they're super obnoxious, super annoying, but they fit the supermodel type of characters that, you know, Vince would probably like to be with Max Dupree. And to be quite honest, I think Duke Hudson also fits. So I think you take Duke Hudson and Pretty Deadly and you send them all to Max Dupree, and that's his maximum male models. You know, the tall, handsome guy and Duke Hudson, and the lover boys, the two Fabios in the Pretty Deadly. You know, I think that would be excellent. Also, I think you could put Los Lotharios with Max Dupree, and that could be fun too. But I'm going to go with Pretty Deadly in this match, mainly because I think the WWE they've been breaking up Diamond Mine via releases for a long time. I think they're finally going to put the stake in the heart of Diamond Mine. And it's pretty crazy that we're going to have the dissolution of two different stables on this episode. Like, there's going to be some stables breaking up here, you know. Either the Diamond Mine is going to break up, or, you know, Legado del Fantasma or Tony D'Angelo's crew, you know. It's entirely possible this could be the one of those end of an era type of shows. And this is another match which is positioned as the main event, which it shouldn't be. Cameron Grimes versus Carmelo Hayes for the NXT North American title. I don't really see Carmelo Hayes winning. I know that I would prefer it if he won, because the fans have turned on Cameron Grimes so much. And it seemed like this is earmarked for Solo Sikoa, though. Like, for him to be the next champion. But him winning it from Carmelo Hayes will be interesting, because Carmelo Hayes isn't actually a heel. But the crowd has turned on Cameron Grimes so much, I think it's actually kind of embarrassing how they've turned on him. To be quite honest, though, this is another toss-up. I'm going to go with Cameron Grimes, though, mainly because it just feels like this will solidify his title run and really validate him as a champion. So I'm going to go with this. You know, this ought to be fun. All right. So there's my predictions. Now, I want to discuss one more subject. There was a subject that was broached, I think it was maybe a week or two ago, by one of my subscribers, when he said that he thinks that maybe NXT has too much women's wrestling. And I said that was a very interesting subject. So I decided, you know, I'm going to take a little bit of time out of the NXT video to talk about it. So it's an interesting idea that they may have too much women's wrestling. We know that NXT goes out of their way to make sure that the women are given the appropriate amount of time, and that they're given the same, not the same amount of time, but very similar time to the men. Now they have their own breakout tournament. They have their own Dusty Classic and that sort of thing. And they're really trying to push this whole women's evolution, which started in NXT. And they're trying to make sure that it stays there, and that they become the home of women's wrestling. At the same time, I think having that all-women show was kind of, you know, ham-fisted in terms of how to present women's wrestling. At the time, I said that it was a good thing because it wasn't beating anybody over the head with it only being a women's show. At the same time, though, you do have to ask the question, were these people even interesting enough to be on TV as long as they were? And to be quite honest, most of them weren't. They just didn't have the personality, they just didn't have the persona, they just wasn't interesting enough or over enough. That is the goal. You know, you can have 6 women's matches on a card. If those characters are over and people are interested in seeing them, I don't think that they'll complain or care. You know, that's the key to get it away from women's match to just plain match on the show. You know, and that's how you cross that border. You know, if you put enough heat on it, you put enough character on it, you put enough care in it, you can actually go beyond the gender paradigm and say that they deserve to be on the card, male or female, they deserve their position, they deserve to be in the main event or whatever. But you have to have the right amount of heat, and it has to be consistent. If you're just going to have generic boobs on the show and it's just girls for the sake of girls, yeah, people are going to say eventually that, you know, you're doing too much and this feels ham-fisted and it feels unfair that you're just kind of having, you feel like you got to have 3 women's matches because you got to have 3 men's matches. It's like, that's nonsense. You don't need that. You know, like you don't need to do that. But I wouldn't say that it's too much women's wrestling. I think they are just attempting to continue NXT's brand of being the home of women's wrestling. And the only way for them to do that is to feature the women more. And now they're just consciously doing it, when they should consciously be building the characters more, building the personas more. And look, I'm not going to knock them because they are actually doing that. You know, they're giving Tiffany Stratton time. They're giving Nikita Lyons time. Lash Legend is getting time. Let them cross over, you know. And they're doing okay. As long as they don't try to ham-fist any more women's only shows, and, you know, then it'll be alright. But let me know what you guys think about NXT and about the predictions and whether NXT has too many women's matches. Like, share, and subscribe. I'll talk to you guys later, man. Peace out.